Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 4 of Echo. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I thought it was so interesting that, and maybe this kind of speaks volumes, that the opening to this episode is a flashback, but instead of being like what it's been in the previous episodes, it's been flashbacks related to, Maya's ancestry, the previous, people in her bloodline and stuff, but for it to revolve around Fisk in so many different ways as she's kind of torn between who she could have been, who she feels like she is, versus who she blames Fisk into making her. So it feels like it's meant to be poetic in that regard. Because this episode's titled Taloa, which we find out is her mom's name. Because it's about that connection comes through later on in the episode when she's having that conversation with Chola about, that connection between Chola and her daughter Taloa and Taloa to Maya, and just that through line and that connection between mother and child and stuff like that. Which I'm actually going to start there and then we'll circle back to the Fisk stuff. But when they actually end up having the heart-to-heart when Maya's explaining like, okay, I'm kind of going through all this stuff, I'm seeing this stuff, and it seems like, so I guess she doesn't see that stuff on a regular enough basis. Chola, I guess it's more like she did at one point in time. Like, once again, they come into your life when you need them, and she has some sense, but I don't think she's always tapping into it like Maya is in that direct way. Maybe it's because Maya's already the next generation, it's all on her. So Chola kind of gets a little bit of it, but it's mainly Maya who interacts with him because she's the latest generation in this family, in this bloodline. But we get into the heart of it all. Like, there's a lot of misconceptions. I had my thoughts about certain things that were cleared up in this episode just because my thought of Chola and Maya's circumstances and relationship. It turns out it's like, yeah, because Maya's like, you disowned me. But she's like, no, I didn't disown you. I disowned your father. But it's like, at no point did you try to reach out to me. Because she's like, because you're too much like him. I thought she was going to correct herself by being like, but I meant your mother. It was too painful. It's like, no, you're too much like your father. And it was just too much of a reminder of who I lost. Because she was like, I was angry. She's like, I wanted to die. And just all I could do was like push him away. So that's so interesting. I mean, that's the sad thing about any situation, that there's always going to be two sides of the story, because Maya says like, oh yeah, all I heard from my dad growing up is how you're the one that destroyed the family, which is so ironic for him to have that perspective, considering, the reason why Taloa got killed in the first place is because of the shady business he was associated with. So it is kind of ironic, but it's like I'm curious, did he actually say all that, or is Maya putting her own perspective of she was young and she's kind of like, have her own bias against her grandmother, and now she's kind of like she's basically twisting history to fit the narrative she has in her head that her grandmother sucks. So maybe her father never really said that, and maybe he said it a certain way, but maybe he didn't put the spice on it the way Maya is. I don't know. But Chula never really kind of denied it. Once again, she admits, I just didn't want to keep you around because you were too much like him. Because, once again, Scully had brought that up in episode 3? At the beginning of episode 3, it's like, oh, how do you know she's really like her dad? Like, you haven't been around her in 20 years. So it's like, what? It's because she was already just making that assumption. Maybe, growing up, Maya shared a lot of similarities with her father. Maybe she was more her father's daughter than she was her mother's daughter. But, which is so, I think maybe that's also why it cuts even deeper, because obviously Chola had a really deep connection with Taloa. That's what the story was, because she had a troubled pregnancy, and that pregnancy would have killed both her and Taloa. But rather than staying in the hospital, she left. Her sisters took her to a midwife, and she was surrounded by family and her sisters throughout this whole thing. And that's when she was reached out to by Chafa, and she even saw Tuklo as well, and all of that gave her the strength, and it was kind of a miracle that Talo was born okay. And she had talked about like the connection between a mother and a child is unbreakable, but for her, her heart got shattered into pieces the moment her daughter died, and just like her entire world came undone. But it wasn't her, because she was stuck in her own feels. Once, because she was going through her own grief, she wasn't there to really be there for Maya. Because even Maya's like, you sent me away to New York, like you never came back. She even chastises Henry that it's like, you left me alone. Because they were talking about like after her dad died, it's like, you never took me back with you. Like, if, and once again, it is that thing of, I think Maya is kind of almost saying like, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been who I was. I turned more into, like, I was a decent enough person. Once again, we haven't gotten a lot of Maya who she was prior to working with Fisk, but it seems like she just probably lived a normal life, probably was very uneventful. But it's not until she went full dark side the moment her dad died and Fisk gave her an outlet for her anger. It's like, if Henry had grabbed her up and taken her back home, who knows who she would have been. And I think, like I said, I think that's the conundrum of, right, it feels like no one was there for me. It's like I felt isolated because my dad was gone, Henry bailed on me, my grandmother wanted nothing to do with me, I was disconnected from my family. The only person reaching out was Bonnie, but because she had such beef with her grandmother at the time, she wasn't even trying to listen. She wasn't willing to. I mean, that ends up being something they played back at the beginning, was Scully telling Chola, instead of talking this time, instead of saying something, how about you listen? And she did this time. You know, kind of hearing where Maya was coming from, where it's just like she was, you're not the only one that was angry or afraid or felt, you know, heartbroken. I was going through that too. I was a child and you abandoned me, you know, and all I, like, you cast me aside. You know how much that hurt because you sent me, because like that's where I was saying like I kind of got things wrong, because I was thinking like, oh, maybe Maya chose to go with her, but it's like, no, her grandmother made that decision. Because like I had said, like, oh, because she's too much like her mom and her dad, that was a conundrum. But Chola hasn't even said that at all, because when she looks at Maya, she seems more like her dad than her mom. Like I said, it's more like, oh, you're your father's daughter rather than your mother's mother, which I think probably would have brought her a little closer. And maybe she's not willing to see Taloa inside of Maya because it will hurt too much. It's easier just to see her as her dad and kind of push her away rather than see your daughter, because it's just once again a constant reminder of what you've lost. And you're screwed either way. You see your father, you're reminded of the person that's responsible for getting her killed. You see your daughter, it's a reminder of your daughter being gone and she was killed. Like, there is no winning in that situation. It's sad. Like, it was therapeutic. They needed to get that out, but nothing was kind of resolved from it, you know. But like I said, the intricacies of mother and daughter, and it makes so much sense why this would be the second to last, the penultimate episode, where it's like, right, the next episode, like I brought up early in the season, is entitled Maya. So for this one to be her mom, it makes sense, especially because we're tying the Chula and Taloa situation together, because we find out her mom was a healer. Like, she can kind of bring anyone, and maybe that's what she saw in Maya's dad, and was like, maybe she was trying to heal him from his own darkness. But I think maybe it's just kind of like when you have someone who is that bright light in your life, once they're gone, the world gets so much dimmer and all you can do is succumb to that darkness. So I think Cholula was in that situation. I think both Maya was in that situation. I think her dad was in that situation as well. So it's a very, very complicated moment of just like everyone's just like in their fields, understandably so. It's just like 20 years of unresolved anger and sadness about what happened to Taloa, and that each of them, you know, once again, everyone's so caught up in their perspective that once again it's like you only cared about yourself, is Maya's perspective when she's looking at her grandmother. It's like all you cared about was yourself. You weren't there for me. I needed you. And what did you do? You pushed me away. You pushed me away from my entire family. You pushed away from the person I was closest to, Bonnie. And, you know, so, and now that's kind of cascaded into the relationships. And, you know, it just, all of that set Maya down a path that would push her further and further and further and closer and closer and closer to Fisk. So I think that's just kind of the interesting duality of this episode, just because like she's teetering on the scale between her family and Fisk as a family member and just what that means. But speaking of Fisk, well, this actually ties into going back to that family conversation, because Henry's like, do you know why I'm 45 years old and I'm alone? Because he killed, he's the reason why everyone around me is gone, everyone I cared about. And after your dad died, I got scared. I wanted to run away, but like I wanted to get out, but he threatened to kill me, so I stayed, you know? And she's like, you didn't take me with you. He was like, I was scared. It was like that's why he was like never like willing to go to war with Fisk. He was too scared to like stand up to him. Like Maya's one of the very few people, I can't say the only person, very few people. Clint's one of those people, Matt's one of those people, but she's one of the other few people that's willing to stand up to Fisk currently. So just like his fear and a little bit of shame is kind of probably why he never brought Maya back, because he was just too scared, because he knew how important Maya was to Fisk, and he didn't want to go like, it's just he was too fearful for his own life to probably even chance that. Because I even brought it up, like in his own twisted way, Fisk does love Maya. It isn't just like, oh, after her dad died. Like, he's, ever since she's been a part of his life, she's always been like a daughter to him. So we got that scene at the beginning where he beats the ever living shit out of that ice cream dude for like making fun of Maya, making her sad. So he's like, oh, let me teach you a lesson. And he's like, oh, like calling up driver, like, give me a new jacket, I don't want Maya to see me. And Maya sees it, and what does she do? She goes over and kicks the dude who just got his face like bashed in by Fist. And she kills her and kicks, and you see that look on Fisk's face, like, oh, like, because Maya's got a mean streak in her. Because, hey, this guy wronged you, and her and Fisk we can totally get behind someone wronging you. What's so interesting, too, is at no point during this whole situation did, oh, yeah, because I keep, you know what, I have to correct myself. Like I said, it's been a while since I saw Hawkeye. I thought it was Fisk that wanted her dad dead, because I was like, why isn't she bringing that up? It's like, well, because he's not the one that, it's not him. Well, because she's like, your boss did. I was about to say, yeah, it is him. I was about to say, like, because the second in command wasn't there because he wanted to take over the position and stuff like that. He knew what was going to happen. He knew that Clint was going to be there to do it, but yeah, it's like, because like she doesn't really directly bring it up, because I guess it's like, right, we've already dealt with that. But it is still the thing of, because he's justifying everything of like, I've done everything I've ever done for you. You know, he like gets her this contact lens that's special, that basically makes it so that it creates it's like an AR thing of like creating, like, it signs stuff for him, so that this way they can directly communicate, because we don't need interpreters anymore, because the last one in their life, Fisk had her put down. She's like, no, I won't say anything. Like, the moment they walked her in the hallway, I was like, this is a little weird. And then the moment she's in the hallway, I'm like, that's plastic. Yep, you're dead. It's like, yeah, because you're privy to these conversations. So it's like, right, we don't need anyone else to be like, all we can trust in this world is each other. And killed her. I wonder, does Maya, Maya's deaf, so she wouldn't have heard that go down. Besides, it was muffled anyway, but yeah, Maya probably thinks like, oh yeah, the interpreter's going. Like, I wonder, does she ever find out that Fisk had her killed? Once again, just shows proof of his brutality. Of like, yeah, this is your interpreter, but it's like, yeah, but she interpreted a lot of these conversations I've had with Maya, so I can't trust her to not be bought by someone else, or the police get to her to get to me. So yeah, she has to be removed from the equation. It's like, that's sad. Probably should have never signed up for that gig in the first place, because there's always a chance of you will always be a loose end, that it's like, I don't really know you. I know Maya, but I don't know you. So, and he even understands. He's like, oh, I get it. You did what you had to do because you felt like I wronged you. And he's like, right, that's what I taught you to do. Like, kind of solve things like that. And she even says, like, violence has always been our language, and it is. You know, the sad thing is, she's so much more like Fisk than she'd ever want to admit. You know, it's like, how much of her is still her father, how much, and as that days go on more and more, she's losing more and more of that connection with her mother, even though that connection is still there. It's not severed, just like Trula and Taloa's relationship isn't severed, and the same thing with Maya. That thread is still there, that connection is there. It might be stretched thin, but it has not been severed. It's always going to be there. So, I think it's just her death is kind of, Taloa's death kind of caused like a break in that connection, but it's still there. They've lost sight of it, and in all their own pain and grief, it's kept them from seeing that connection and feeling that connection. But either way, Fisk wants to kind of sit down with her. He also shows off his eye, where it's like, yeah, this will be a constant reminder of just like, oh, the permanent damage to his eye. And offered her wine. She poured it down the drain, and like, yeah, let's just have some soda instead. And he's trying to have like this will be like our Sunday dinners that we used to have, even though it's Thursday. and he's offering her own empire. He's like, you want it? It's yours. I'll give you anything in the world. Just come back home with me. That's the one condition. So I'm gonna be here for like a couple days, but yeah, at the end, when it's all said and done, I'm gonna take a plane back to New York, and I want you with me. You can find me at the hotel if you want to. So it's not until that confrontation with her grandmother that kind of solidified where she's just like, fuck it, and she goes and tries to kill Fisk again. And he's just like, right, I kind of had figured you would try to kill me again. But it's like, right, all I've ever done is do so much for you. Because she's like, right, you lied to me, you manipulated me. Kind of once again, kind of being like, oh, you're the reason why I'm the way I am. He's like, no. Yeah, I asked you to murder people, but at any point in time, did you plead for their lives? No, you didn't. Because you want to make it seem like I'm the monster. I gave you purpose. Yes, I pointed you in the right direction. But at any point, you could have said no. But she's like, because you isolated me. It's like, because it felt good. Because whether Maya wants to admit it or not, because he even says, there was a look of relief on you because you were thinking like the worst thing you had done might have been killing me. You know, it's just because even though our relationship is soured, there's a piece of you that was happy to see that I was alive because we've both been so monumental to each other's life. We mean so much to each other. In this world where it feels like no one can understand them, like we understand each other, which is ironic considering something she brings up. She's like, if you never bothered even learning sign language. You went through all this to give you a technological advantage. You never even bothered putting in the time to learn sign language. You had a translator, and now you have another translator. You know, and that kind of pissed him off. Like, I've done everything for you. He kind of snaps. But it's like, he's like, why won't you accept my love? Why won't you let me love you the way I want to? You know? Why can't you see that I love you and I care about you? Why can't you accept that? It's like, yeah, but your love comes with conditions and manipulation. You isolated me from everyone else. You made me feel like I was alone. Like you were literally the only person I could trust. It's like you made me into this monster. But it's like, no, it takes two to tango. You're just as responsible. At no point did you give any pushback because it felt good. You liked like having an outlet for your anger. It made you have a purpose again. It felt good. You were enjoying it. You weren't riddled with guilt over it until now when you look back at who you've become and you can't even recognize who you are in the mirror anymore. So many pieces. You've given away so much of yourself over those years working for Fisk, and it is that point that, I mean, that's what happens with Fisk. You give enough of yourself over and over and over again until you recognize you're a shell of who you used to be, because everything you've given up, your humanity, all the people that you've murdered, all that death is on, all that blood is on your hands. You could say, yes, it was Fisk, but it is all on you. And like I said, it goes back to her just feeling like if someone had reached out, if her grandmother hadn't pushed her in that direction, maybe life would be different. If Henry had taken her after her dad died, like, you know, but it's also, you could have reached out to Bonnie, but once again, it's like Bonnie isn't that same as her grandma pushing her away because you're too much like your father. She didn't reach out to Bonnie because Bonnie was too much like her. Like I said, they were both just so angry to really be there for each other in that moment like they should have been. She herself was more so angry at her father, but at Maya's dad, but she ended up getting dragged into that anger, that hate, you know? And it's like what's already been festering there since she was a little girl. Like Fisk saw that as a little, like in that little girl, that anger, that there was so much there, that darkness. He saw it and he preyed upon it and he used it, you know. But he'll say like, no, I gave you purpose. I love you. I did something for you no one else would. I gave you purpose because I love you. I did all this for you. Why can't you recognize that? And he shares with her, hey, so it also confirms this is the same Fisk, because it seemed like it was implying that was going to be the case. Once again, I hadn't seen the trailer, but people had talked about the trailer that had used scenes from the Daredevil show, kind of implying this was the same Fisk. But it's the hammer he used to kill his dad. And I forgot to talk about it because I was like, I couldn't remember if that was the case, but it was like, yes, this episode kind of implied. Yeah, his dad was an abusive piece of shit. He beat Wilson's mom. So it's like, right, I did it to save her, you know, I freed her, you know, and which also I'm sad too, because it's like his dad was like, he loved his dad. So people dads not being perfect. I mean, his dad in particular ended up being very monstrous in that regard. It's like, was Maya's dad a monster? That's questionable. I doubt she'd ever view him as one, but I'm sure Probably not to the extent that Fisk dad was, but I think it's still a thing of an argument could be made for Maya against her dad, whether or not he was a monster. I think an argument could be made. But basically, he's like, free me. I don't know what he's really expecting. I guess he gave her that opportunity because he was thinking and hopeful, like, I believe that when it's all said and done, now that I've bared it all to you, you won't kill me. Because it's like, right, we're too similar. Because you love me. Because you do care about me. You know? Because it's like, right, set me free by killing me, but also set yourself free of being completely free of me. Like you thought you were. But that didn't stop you from being relieved to see me pop up again. But she puts the hammer down. He's like, good, like, tomorrow, let's leave together. But after thinking about over everything, him, her dad, her mom, Biscuit, Scully, Chola, Bonnie, Henry, all of it just becomes a lot. Because even Henry was like, I don't want you to be like me. I'm sure like I said, it's literal battle for her soul in a lot of capacities. And she gets to the point that she decides just to leave Tamaha. And Fisk finds out and he's super upset because he was hoping to have her back. You know, it's like, right, just why does everyone leave me? You know, why am I the one that's alone in this world? Like, she was the last person in this world he really had, and now she's gone. So he was hoping to get her back. So it's like, what happens now? You know, where does Maya go? Like, is she going to be waiting in New York for him? What is she going to do? You know, because it seemed like her grandmother was making something. I was like, I wonder, is this going to be like is it going to be kind of a Miss Marvel thing where like her mom, or like I think it was her mom who made her outfit. I wonder if we're going to get something here where like maybe Maya will end up with a traditional, like more traditional costume of sorts, or superhero costume that maybe is made by her mom, you know, a grandmother in that way. Maybe it's made by material that was used by, or maybe it was supposed to belong to Taloa. What's also interesting too is like we also get her name, Echo. It's because of the whole thing of like, oh, you have all these generations prior echoing through, and that's what those voices are. That feeling, what she's seeing in her head, they are echo. I was like, that's actually pretty dope, kind of bringing it all full circle with her name and everything. So I'm curious to see how this all plays out. The next episode is the finale, so what is Maya going to do next? Like, what is the aftermath after everything that she's done? She's just kind of running away. She was kind of forced to leave before. Now she's making a choice to leave, but where do you go from here? What happens now? Like, does Fisk kind of continue putting a bounty on you just because it's like, right, you turned against me? It's like, fine. This was my last attempt to reach you, and I thought I did, but no, you slapped my hand away and you spit on me. So it's like, fine, don't worry about it anymore. I'll be the monster you want me to be. I'll be the bad guy, you know. So is she gonna go out there still trying to dismantle everything? He's like, what is Maya's end goal going to be? How's this all going to play out? We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the finale ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.